Good morning. This morning, we are going to read The King's Toothache. Did you ever have a toothache? And do you know what caused a toothache? When I was a kid, we lived in a small village far from the city, and there was no dentist. There was no one to help take care of our teeth. So a lot of people had a toothache back then. I personally never had a toothache, but I heard from other people that it's very painful when you have a toothache. Let's find out what happened in The King's Toothache by Colin West, illustrated by Anne Dalton. At Kenilworth Castle, Gazooz and forsooth, the king has a terrible ache in his mouth. That's called a toothache, right? Go fetch me a dentist, he moans to his nurse. And hurry up, Mary, before it gets worse. He's lucky that he has a dentist around. So Mary, she gallops to nearby St. Eve's to fetch him a dentist, but when she arrives, she looks left and right, and she looks up and down, but there's not one dentist in all of the town. Did she go to the dentist's office to find a dentist? Can a dentist be found on the street? So Mary stands and she scratches her head and decides to return with a baker instead. Now think about it. Do you think a baker will be able to take care of the king's toothache? If the baker bakes some more cupcakes and give it to the king to eat, will the cupcakes get rid of the toothache? Probably not. At Kenilworth Castle, the king's tooth still aches. The baker comes in with a trayful of cakes. The king eats them up, but they don't do the trick. His tummy now aches, and he's feeling quite sick. Go fetch me a doctor, he moans to his nurse. And hurry up, Mary, before it gets worse. Before, he only had the toothache. Now, he has the toothache and the stomach ache. The baker makes him sicker than before. So Mary, she gallops to nearby St. Eve's to fetch him a doctor. But when she arrives, she looks left and right, and she looks up and down, but there's not one doctor in all of the town. So Mary, she stands and she scratches her head and decides to ask back the town crier instead. Do you know what a town crier is? It's just a person who goes around town shouting to other people about what is going on in town. We could say he's a news person. At Kenilworth Castle, to make the king well, the town crier lets out a deafening yell. So that's what he's good at, yelling. The king isn't cured, though, and takes to his bed. For now, he's complaining of aches in his head. So he has the toothache, the stomach ache, and now the headache. Poor king. Who would be able to help him? Go fetch me a surgeon, he moans to his nurse. And hurry up, Mary, before it gets worse. Someone's gonna open him up and fix him, because that's what a surgeon does. So Mary, she gallops to nearby St. Eve's to fetch him a surgeon. But when she arrives, she looks left and right, and she looks up and down, but there's not one surgeon in all of the town. So Mary, she stands and she scratches her head and decides to go back with a sailor instead. You know what a sailor is, right? Yeah, a sailor is the guy that work on a ship. At Kenilworth Castle, the sailor, he looks deep down the king's mouth, and with a twine and with hooks, he finds the bad tooth, which he waggles about. Then he tugs on the string, and he pulls it clean out. And that's how you cure a toothache. When I was a kid and we were in the village, we didn't have a dentist, so if someone had a really terrible toothache, they just knock that tooth out with some kind of tool, and that will cure the toothache. He then poured a potion, and though looking glum, the king drinks it down, and it cured his bad tongue. See, his toothache is gone. He drank that medicine, now his stomach is gone. Hopefully the sailor can do something about his headache too. Then singing a shanty and dancing a jig, the king throws his headache away with his wig. He hasn't a worry, he hasn't a care. He's fit as a fiddle and dance on air. 3 cheers for the sailor for all that he's done. A dentist, a doctor, and a surgeon in one. That sailor is quite handy. He cured the king's toothache, stomachache, and headache. So boys and girls, you have to visit your dentist often so that you don't get a toothache. When my oldest brother was still alive, he had a hole in his tooth, and whenever he ate something, food would get into the tooth, and he had to find some way to get all of those food out of his tooth, or it will hurt pretty bad. If you don't go see a dentist, then you might have toothache, just like this king did. So take care of your teeth.